Us GMs love to use dragons because they are iconic and epic. Players also like dragons because they are iconic and epic, and players like knowing things, so everyone likes dragons. But there are some problems with running dragons in D&D. Let's talk about it. Before we start this video, I want you to go to the blah blah below, that's the comments, and let me know, yes or no, have you ever run a dragon in D20 Fantasy? If yes, how did it go, and if no, why not? This is a small channel, I don't get many comments, so if you comment below, I'm gonna see it, heart it, and probably respond, so let's get a conversation going. Also, this video is for #Dragon Week, a week where your favorite TTRPG creators come together and make a video about a specific topic. This year, the topic is dragons. I'm going to include a link to the playlist for Dragon Week in the nonsense below, and I encourage you to check it out. And in the meantime, let's talk about the 3 problems with running dragons in D&D. Problem number 1 is that dragons in D&D are just not that interesting. They have a problem which I like to call the Power Ranger problem. There's a red one, and a green one, and a black one, and a yellow one, and a metallic one, and a gold one, and a silver one, and a bronze one. And it starts making you go, why? But tell me, to you, what sounds more interesting? A black dragon with CR 14? Or Alduin the World Eater with CR unknown? The reason one is more epic than the other is that when you categorize things as specific instantiations of general classifications, it gives you an air of understanding that robs the thing of its epicness. That's because the epicness of something comes from having the in front of it instead of just a. For example, the black dragon instead of a black dragon. My advice here is simple. Give your dragon a nickname and then world build as much backstory for the dragon as you're inspired to make, even if that's none. This accomplishes 3 things. 1, the dragon becomes the dragon instead of a dragon. 2, a nickname hints at a backstory even if you don't have one. 3, we do our best world building when we're inspired. So world build what you're inspired by now and leave space for later you or for your players to surprise you. Moving on to the second problems of dragons in D&D, it's that GMs just don't use them. Either because they get the impression that dragons belong at a higher level, which they never get to, or they feel that dragons need to be earned through lots and lots of play, which they haven't done. GMs are absolutely right that the payoff of fighting a dragon only feels right if you earned it with progress. An epic fight must be narratively earned, but remember this, there is nothing stopping you from using epic monsters like dragons as end bosses. They're still earned, as they should be, but it takes getting to the end of a campaign instead of years and years of play. Dragons specifically make for great end bosses because they are, in a sense, the archetypal end boss. I have 2 more things for you to consider about why you would or wouldn't want to run a dragon in your game. The first one is that I will bet you that many players will only play TTRPGs a handful of times. TTRPG games are like baby seals. Only a tiny % makes it past the first month, so you should not be frugal with the amount of epicness you inject into your campaign. The second point is that I feel it's a similar thing that compels new writers to give readers pages and pages of exposition so that the readers can understand their genius and appreciate the epic moments when they happen. But as it turns out, it's a lot better and more enjoyable for readers to be put into the action first and understand, in a grand scale, why it's epic later. And moving on from being narratively earned to the level issue, I don't think that there is a level issue. This is the biggest lie GMs believe about running dragons in TTRPGs, that dragons belong at a high level of play. The way D&D is written makes it seem like adventurers need to be at a certain level in order to fight a dragon, because that would make it a fair fight, i.e. adventurers should reasonably be able to use their weapons and abilities to win the fight. The issue with this is that if players are able to defeat a dragon using only their weapons and abilities, then everything cool about the idea of fighting a dragon is lost. What we want to do instead is give players problems that they can't solve with their character sheets. When we do this, players will start thinking about their character solving a problem within your world. They will start role-playing. More on this in a second. It's important, I promise. Moving on to problem number 3, dragons are just not well designed. There's an essential contradiction between running epic bosses and the mechanics of the game. A combat system that is made to run encounters like goblins versus adventurers is not so good at running encounters of dragon or kraken versus adventurers. Grid-based size, 60 feet of movement, and trading attacks start making a lot less sense when your monster is huge and is flying or in the water, and you're either on the ground with a ballista or in the water with a boat. And like we said before, if we want this to be an epic fight, players should not be able to solve it with their character sheets alone. But here is where things get tricky. While the combat system is not good for running a fight against a dragon, we can't just ignore it. Almost all character abilities in 5th edition are to do with combat. So if you want players to be able to make use of the choices they made when they made their characters, we have to find a way to interface with a combat system. Here is the solution that I propose. The fight is going to have 2 main phases. The first one is going to be mostly narrative or cinematic, and it's not going to use the combat mechanics of 5th edition. The second phase will use the combat mechanics of 5th edition, but will twist them and turn them in a way to make the fight work. To accomplish both of these things, we will be analyzing the dragon using the framework that I outlined in my video. The worst part of any ttrpg is playing it. Which is basically fantasy, goals, and mechanics. The fantasy is the highest level attribute of the thing you're thinking about. So when you think about fighting a dragon, what are thoughts, feelings, and moments that are evoked in your mind? We want to think of these things, capture them, and turn them into goals. Goals are objectives that we want to accomplish with our design that will fulfill our fantasies. The last thing we'll be doing is mechanics. Once we have the goals, the only way to accomplish them is by interfacing with the actual math, dice, pencils, and paper of the game. We want to create mechanics that fulfill our objectives or our goals, and ultimately our goals will fulfill our fantasy. And so the idea is that when you use the mechanic, the same thoughts, feelings, and moments that you had in your mind when you thought about fighting a dragon arise. If you're still confused about this, I encourage you to check out that video. It's either here or here, I can never remember. Let's start with the fantasy. I have a list of items that I want to read off of. Now keep in mind that my fantasy for a dragon might be different from your fantasy of running a dragon, so please be empowered to make your own list. Here we go, the fantasy of running a dragon, some bullet points. In the context of evil dragons that one would fight, dragons are hoarders, destroyers, and masters of ancient knowledge. We also have perhaps a feeling of dread and thinking to yourself, I don't know if we are going to win, and if we are, I don't know how. Another thing in the fantasy of a dragon is an iconic ability to breathe fire, frost, or lightning. For this video, I'm going to focus on fire because that's the most iconic. Dragons should be very powerful and should be able to, in a way, fight from above. The last bullet points I have in the fantasy for dragons is that dragons are huge, and we want to be able to show off that fantasy of being huge. That moves us on nicely to our goals. In this section, we simply want to figure out what are our design objectives given the fantasy. One of the most important fantasies in my mind for the dragon is that dragons are powerful. They are so powerful that players should not be able to just fight the dragon. In other words, players will need to do something outside of combat to level the playing field. For example, the players might contact the crafting guild of the dwarves and ask them to build ballistas, or delve into an ancient temple, find schematics for a net thrower, and make the dwarves build that. Usually, players use their stats, weapons, and spells to solve problems, but suddenly those things alone will not be enough. This can be scary as a GM because suddenly you're not relying on the game's systems. The game systems won't help you to resolve ambiguities in what the players want to do. How do I know if something works or doesn't work? And how do I know what the outcome is? I promise you that this will work as long as you collaborate with the players. Don't give your players solutions, but correct errors that would be obvious to their characters. And tell them about the probable outcome of certain actions if those are also obvious to their characters. When players can't use their character sheets to solve problems, they will start asking you questions about your world. Be prepared to answer those questions. I don't know what plans your players will come up with. I don't know what plans your players will come up with. That's up to them. Don't make an answer and remind your players you don't have one. The high-level thing you want to accomplish here is to enable player creative thinking by helping them stay within the constraints of what would work in your world. During COVID, I ran a campaign for my friends, and for some of them it was the first time playing ttrpgs. They were level 3, and I hinted and eventually threw a dragon at them. One of the few players who played D&D before told me, dragons are not a level 3 monster. And then they turned to their party and they said, guys, I don't know how we're going to win this. And they turned to me and they said, we can't win this. And I turned to them and I said, I don't know how you're going to win this. And that was true. But after that moment of dread, the players came up with a plan and through multiple sessions, executed that plan and won the day. Give players a chance to get in over their heads and come up with a crazy solution. They will always pull something out of the hat. Let them. So that's just one objective. The rest will be faster. But to remind you, this objective is the dragon should be powerful, and players will have to do something outside of combat to level the playing field. What other goals or objectives do we have for this design? Let me read off my bullet points here. Some of these following moments. We want the dragon to be able to show off its epic power. We want a feeling of dread, and maybe the dragon flying above you and being engulfed by its shadow, showing its immense size. It's very likely that the player's plan will involve grounding the dragon so it can't fly and level the playing field that way. This will probably take multiple people working at the same time, and some of these people are going to be NPCs. This is great because in the French tradition, we can kill people to make a point. As they are preparing or setting up, we can have the dragon swoop down from above and just completely torch a bunch of NPCs, or maybe grab someone and just toss them into the sky, and then they drop and reasonably die. The point is, this will help us show that the dragon is powerful, instead of just saying it, or that being expected. Some more objectives is that the dragon will be severely outnumbered, so it will need to be able to do some of the following things. It needs to deal with debilitating fight-ending effects like magical paralysis or going to sleep. It needs to have at least some control on the distance between it and the party so it can't just keep getting kited over and over again. It also will need some ability to deal damage to multiple players because, again, it is outnumbered, and given the action economy of a game like D&D, that is a necessity. Now let's move on to mechanics. Mechanics are, what do we actually do with the things the game does, and what do we put in our session notes to make sure this encounter really happens? Mechanics are where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. Like we said before, we're probably going to have two phases. The first one where the dragon is flying, and the second one where the dragon is grounded. How your players will choose to deal with the dragon will impact what comes before the actual fight greatly. The biggest pointer I have for you is to focus on the narrative and cinematic part of the fight. Make it feel like it's building up to something epic, like the dragon with all its might is trying to resist being grounded. You can sprinkle in a few skill checks here and there, but the idea is to set up the fight and make fighting the dragon and winning feel earned. The most important thing is that the dragon ends up grounded and severely injured. This makes it reasonable for adventurers to be able to fight it. In other words, we level the playing field. But by no means is this now an easy battle. The next part of this fight is, well, the fight itself, and for that we have the stat block. The problem about the regular stat block is that 1, it's made for super high levels, and 2, it has a bunch of useless information on it. So what we will be doing is stealing some numbers from the Chimera's stat block, because that's a lower level that's kind of dragon-like. The second thing we'll be doing is getting rid of all the stuff we don't need that's on the stat block. GMs have enough to keep track of, as is, so if we can optimize the signal-to-noise ratio, that is best. The last thing we'll do is create the goal-fulfilling mechanics. These will just be abilities. I don't care too much if they're called legendary actions, or reactions. They are just abilities, and some of them happen once per fight, some of them you can use when you feel is appropriate, and some of them happen once per round. The important thing is that they fulfill the objective. And in order to do that, they need to have high to hit values. Because if you do the epic ability and it misses and nothing happens, that's not interesting. Things need to happen. The mechanics need to, in fact, work in order to fulfill the objective. Let's get into it. Going through the stat block for the dragon, it says Gargantuan Dragon. We already knew that. It says Chaotic Evil. It doesn't matter. There are some values for stats, but I only need the modifiers. There is a proficiency bonus, which I don't need to know. There are some legendary actions, which are not necessary, and damage types, which are obvious and usually unnecessary. So we'll be getting rid of all of those, tossing out the window, and let's come up with a nickname, let's say the Red Tyrant. We're going to yank the AC health stat modifiers and any other special resistances it has out of the chimeras and put it in a way where it doesn't take a whole page. And now the fun part, we get to come up with some abilities. Let's do it. I'm going to read off my notes because I have these all written down nicely. By the way, this is going to be in the nonsense below, so you can copy paste it. It's going to be pure text, so it should fit into whatever notes app you use and fit within a single page, probably less. The first ability is used while the dragon is flying, so you'll probably use it in the cinematic first phase of the fight. The Red Tyrant will sweep down at an enemy and try to grab them. They need to make a DC 20 dexterity saving throw. That seems like a goodly number. I just stole it from the dragon's stat sheet, and I don't know if it's the exact number, or I might have changed it a little bit, but 20 sounds good. The dragon will then carry them up, drop them, dealing 66 damage. I just got that by saying, well, 60 feet, and then 1d6 per 10 feet of... Okay, yeah, 66, that sounds good. This is not an action, reaction, or an attack because we're not in combat yet. This is the cinematic part of the fight, so use it whenever you think you need to. The idea is that the dragon should be sweeping from above because why wouldn't it? He sees a bunch of people with pointy sticks and he doesn't want to get close, he just wants to stay above them, pick them off. The next ability is the iconic Fire Breath. The dragon is going to fire a cone of fire that is 90 feet. I stole that from the dragon stat block, and it's going to deal 7d8 damage. I stole that from the Chimera stat block. PCs can use their reaction to roll a DC 10 dexterity saving throw and move out of the cone. If they fail, they take the damage that I mentioned, and also any mundane metal objects they have are melted down into slag and destroyed. Just so the ability feels really impactful, fire is going to stay in that area for a whole round, so if you stay in there or move into it, you're going to get 46 damage, and say it's going to be rough terrain because it's been melted and destroyed by the fire. This is a death ray, but I gave it a low dexterity saving throw threshold, and the reason for that is that I want you to be able to target PCs with this, and for them to be able to narrowly avoid certain death. Next, I'm going to give it a bite ability that it can use 1 per round. It has +7 to hit, and it deals 2d6 plus 4, that's stolen from the Chimera. And then once per combat, when you feel like it, and when the attack succeeds, the dragon grabs a target with their mouth and flails them around in the air, tossing them to the ground, dealing 46 damage. Because we make this ability only work when the dragon already hit its attack, it feels earned and players don't say, wait, that doesn't make any sense. It kind of makes sense. It hit an attack and now it does an extra thing. Sure. Next ability, we're going to give it an ability to use its claws to swipe. It's going to just be an attack against all enemies in a 15-foot cone. Seems like a goodly number. +7, 2d6 plus 4 damage. I definitely stole that as well from the Chimera stat block. Some more tools that we're going to give it in order to deal with multiple adventurers or one adventurer who's very far away. One is a tail sweep that it can use twice per combat. All adventurers in a 20-foot cone must make a DC 20 dexterity saving throw or take 1d12 plus 4 damage and be hurled backwards to the end of the cone and be knocked prone. The second ability is Lunge, that it can use once per combat, and when a PC hits the dragon from afar with an attack or spell, they use their reaction to immediately turn to that PC, stare them down, and lunge at them with all their might. They move to be adjacent to that PC and immediately get a free bite attack on them. This doesn't only help the dragon with distance management, it also just sounds like kind of a cool moment that I envisioned, and I wanted to make it happen with these mechanics. 2 more abilities for this combat. I call this one You Dare, which is, I wanted to succeed at least once, so I just wrote 1 success per combat. When a PC misses a melee attack against the Red Tyrant, that PC needs to make a DC 20 strength saving throw. If they succeed, the dragon will swipe at them and they narrowly escape. But if they fail, the dragon will pin them down beneath its claws and will start charging its breath weapon. Next turn, the PC must make a DC 10 strength saving throw or be burned alive. And let's say any attack the dragon takes between its turn now and its turn next round is going to decrease that DC by 1. The idea here is to eventually trap a player in its claws, but to have that player narrowly escape instead of just being executed. Last ability, I call it King of the Ashes. It's going to be once per combat when the dragon is low. When it's desperate, it's going to breathe fire on the ground around him, absorbing the fire and kicking ash and dust into the air. The entire area is going to become heavily obscured, giving PCs disadvantage on attack against the Red Tyrant for the next round. The Red Tyrant will be glowing red with heat, and anyone entering or ending their turn within 10 feet of the dragon is going to take 1d6 damage from the blistering hot. I just want to create an epic moment where ash and dust kicks into the air and you see this massive dragon glowing in the dark and you see the heat emanating off of it. It just sounds cool to me. Like I said before, the fantasies that you might have in your brain and come up with and make into goals and then mechanics might be different from mine. And that's great. Your dragon will be your dragon. Like I said, this stat block is going to be in the nonsense below. That's everything I have for running the actual combat, except I have one more secret tip for you. In that one game I ran for my friends during COVID, I spoke to the player who said, I don't know if we're going to win this, between sessions, and told him this. I want to engineer an epic moment where your character faces down the dragon and makes the ultimate sacrifice, dies, in order to slay that dragon. Are you interested in doing that? And they said, yes, that sounds awesome. And that's because players love collaborating with the GM and getting a little peek behind the screen. The other great thing about this is that you're engineering an epic moment where they get to be the heroes and the party is surprised by it. So I don't remember at this point exactly what I said, but it was something like, I will let you know when the moment arrives by saying this specific phrase, and when it does, I want you to say that your character goes forward and tries to kill the dragon. I'll take over from there. That's just something that you can do. I know this has been a long video, so I want to give you a kind of a summary of what we did. The first thing we did is we identified some problems with running dragons in D&D. And then what we did is debunked or talked about some of these problems, and then redesigned the dragon using first principles. We started with the fantasy. What do you think and feel when you think about a dragon fight? We went to the goals. What are our objectives given this fantasy? And then created mechanics. What actual things do we put on paper in the game to accomplish our goals? That's everything I have for now about dragons. If you like this video, please make sure to slam your face into the like button. And if you want to see more, please press the subscribe button, preferably with your face, forcefully. Let's do an odd number of times. Let's do 11 for the like button and 15 for subscribe. But if you're already subscribed, do an even number for the subscribe button. Let's go for 200. I can't tell you how much doing this stuff helps me, because I honestly don't know. I don't know how the algorithm works, and I don't think anyone does, but I'm sure it helps. If you like this video, you might also enjoy this video, which is on your screen right now, about how to run the Kraken in D&D. I do a similar thing there where we break down the problem and offer a solution, ultimately going from fantasy to goals to mechanics. That's pretty much it. I'll see you later.